Hello everyone, today I'll continue telling you the story of a young woman named Tiểu San. I hope you'll enjoy this video. Ever since Tiểu San's unfaithful husband told his mother that his mistress was pregnant, her life has felt like it's fallen into a new, bottomless pit. At first, Tiểu San still held on to a glimmer of hope, even though he had betrayed her. She believed that once the truth came out, her mother-in-law would take her side, scold her son, and protect the family's honor. But reality turned out to be far more brutal than she imagined. Instead of being angry or disappointed, her mother-in-law was overjoyed. She had longed for a grandson for years, but Tiểu San, despite being married for quite some time, had not given birth to any children. In the old-fashioned beliefs she held, a grandson was a source of pride, the heir, the proof of her status within the family line. So when she heard that the mistress was pregnant, she immediately assumed, this time, it must be a boy, as if heaven had granted her the greatest blessing. She didn't scold her son for his betrayal, instead, she defended him eagerly. Well, it's fate after all. As long as I can have a grandchild to hold, that's all that matters. Her eyes sparkled with a joy that Tiểu San had never seen during all her years as a daughter-in-law. The feeling of betrayal now came not only from her husband but also from the very woman she once considered a second mother. In the days that followed, her mother-in-law's attitude changed completely. She became cold and distant, often making veiled comments about her son finally having someone to bear a grandson, as if Tiểu San's place in the family had become unnecessary. Every word, every glance felt like a knife cutting deeper into Tiểu San's heart, pushing her further to the edges of the home she had once belonged to. Being honest and emotionally fragile, Tiểu San didn't know what else to do but cry and beg her husband to think of their family, to think of their young child. Through sobs, clutching his hands tightly as tears streamed down her face, she pleaded, "Please, don't leave me and our child. He's still so young, he needs a complete family. I can endure anything, as long as you stay." To Tiểu San, family meant everything. She grew up lacking love and warmth, and she only wished for her son to never experience that same loneliness. She was willing to humble herself, to suffer, even to be looked down upon, just to keep a home for her child. But the man standing before her had already changed completely. His eyes were cold and emotionless, showing not the slightest hint of compassion. All he could think about was having a son. Ever since learning about the pregnancy, he convinced himself that this is destiny, that child will be the future of the family line. To him now, Tiểu San's desperate pleas were nothing but an annoyance. He pushed her hand away and said dryly, "Stop making things hard for me. You gave birth to a girl, so know your place. Don't expect me to abandon my son to come back to you." His words cut like blades. Tiểu San's heart shattered into pieces. She had never imagined that the man she had loved so deeply, with whom she had endured so many hardships, could become so cruel, all because of an unborn child, simply because it was a boy. She collapsed onto the cold floor, her shoulders trembling uncontrollably. In that moment, she felt as though the entire world had turned its back on her. Yet deep inside, she still clung to a fragile hope that he would come to his senses, for their child, for their family. Her sister-in-law, who had once treated her coldly as well, happened to witness this heartbreaking scene that night. In the past, when Tiểu San first married into the family, her difficult circumstances and modest nature made her easy to look down on. But later, when the sister-in-law fell into debt, it was Tiểu San who quietly helped her, scraping together money to bail her out. That act slowly softened the resentment between them. That evening, passing through the living room, the sister-in-law suddenly saw Tiểu San sitting on the floor, her face buried in her hands, shoulders soaked with tears. The sight stopped her in her tracks and stirred a deep, painful sympathy inside her. She hurried over, gently placing a hand on Tiểu San's shoulder, Sister, what happened? Why are you crying like this? Choking back tears, Tieu San recounted everything, the pregnancy, the coldness from her mother-in-law, the desperate pleas that fell on deaf ears. Every word stabbed into the sister-in-law's heart. For the first time in her life, she felt genuine anger toward her brother. She confronted him in the hallway, shouting, "What's wrong with you? She suffered enough for you and this family. And now you treat her like this?" But deep down, she knew her position in the household. Since childhood, her voice had never carried any real weight with her mother or brother. No matter how much she pleaded, her brother's cold, indifferent eyes never wavered. He brushed her off. "This is my business. Stay out of it." For the first time, the sister-in-law stood on Tieu San's side, but her words were like a passing breeze, too weak to sway a heart already blinded by selfishness and obsession. She could only watch helplessly as her sister-in-law sank deeper into sorrow, torn between family bonds and conscience, her own heart breaking into pieces. After witnessing her sister-in-law's heart-wrenching breakdown, the younger sister's heart was in turmoil. She knew her voice carried little weight in the family, but she couldn't just stand by and watch Tieu San, the very person who had once helped her through her darkest days, be pushed into such a desperate corner. She decided she had to do something. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, she quietly took out her phone and searched for the mistress's number, the one her brother had once accidentally mentioned. Her hands trembled with nervousness, but her eyes burned with an unusual determination. After several long rings, a sweet yet arrogantly confident female voice answered on the other end. "Who are you?" the woman asked. "I'm his sister. I want to meet you and talk things through. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., at the cafe on the corner of Nguyen Street. If you have the guts to interfere in someone else's family, then you should have the guts to face me." The line went silent for a few seconds, then the woman chuckled mockingly. "Fine. I've been wanting to meet the family anyway." The next day, at the cafe, the younger sister waited anxiously, her heart pounding. The moment the mistress walked in, she recognized her immediately, a sharp, calculating woman, nothing like the gentle image her brother had described. The younger sister got straight to the point, her voice firm. "I don't care what happened between you and my brother. But I'm warning you, don't you dare try to destroy my sister-in-law's family. She's been through enough already." But instead of showing fear, the mistress smirked and lightly placed a hand on her belly. "Destroy? No. I'm simply taking what belongs to my child. This baby is the future of your family. As for your sister-in-law, sooner or later, she'll have to leave. And of course, she'll leave with nothing." Her cold words struck like a hammer. It was then that the younger sister realized, this wasn't just a messy affair, it was a carefully planned scheme. The mistress continued, her tone full of provocation. "Do you think I'm stupid? Your brother and I have already discussed everything. Once the baby is born, your mother will take my side, and your sister-in-law will have nowhere left to cling to. She's weak, naive, she'll be forced out of that house eventually." The younger sister clenched her fists so tightly that her nails dug into her skin. Her eyes flashed with a mix of fury and fear. She understood that if she didn't act fast, Tieu San would not only be cast aside with a broken heart, but she would also lose everything she owned, for herself and her daughter. Even though the younger sister had chosen to stand by Tieu San, it wasn't enough to change the power dynamics in that house. The husband was blinded by his obsession with having a son, and the mother-in-law openly showed favoritism and cruelty. Tieu San was like a lost soul in her own home, a place that should have been a safe haven for her and her child. Not long after that fateful meeting, a shocking event took place. The husband and mother-in-law brazenly brought the mistress into their home to live with them, treating her as though she were already the new lady of the house. They didn't ask Tieu San's opinion, nor did they care about her feelings or those of her young daughter. The mother-in-law coldly declared in front of everyone, "She's carrying this family's grandson. From now on, she's part of this household. Tieu San, you'd better behave yourself and take good care of her. She's carrying the bloodline of this family." Her words cut into Tieu San's heart like a blade. Just because her own child was a girl, all her years of devotion and sacrifice were instantly erased. She stood frozen, overwhelmed by humiliation and injustice. From the rightful wife, she was suddenly reduced to a servant in her own home. The mistress strutted in with her pregnant belly proudly on display, like a conqueror returning in triumph, her eyes gleaming with defiance. She even deliberately ordered Tieu San around, from cooking, laundry, and cleaning, to petty household chores. Once, during a meal, she sat back with folded arms and commanded, "Pour me some water." Pregnant women shouldn't stand for too long. Tieu San's husband sat right beside them, and instead of defending his wife, he frowned and coldly ordered, "Didn't you hear her? She's carrying my son." The mother-in-law joined in, scolding loudly, "What's so special about having a daughter? If you know what's good for you, step aside." Each word, each disdainful look pierced Tieu San's heart like a knife. The younger sister stood by, witnessing everything, her rage choking her, but she lacked the power to intervene. She had tried many times to pull her brother aside and talk sense into him, but he only responded with irritation and an icy glare. At night, in the small, cold room, Tieu San held her little daughter tightly in her arms. The innocent child didn't understand what was happening, she simply gripped her mother's hand, seeking comfort. Tears soaked Tieu San's pillow as she lay there, feeling pushed to the margins, voiceless and displaced. Yet, in that darkness, a tiny flame began to flicker, a flame of deep resentment and fierce maternal love. She could endure humiliation, but she would not allow her daughter to grow up in an environment of scorn and cruelty. Ever since the mistress officially moved into the house, the atmosphere in Tieu San's home had turned upside down. The woman made no effort to hide her ambition. She began using every cunning trick she could think of to force Tieu San to leave voluntarily, making room for herself and her unborn child. At first, it was small things, deliberately taking over the living room, sitting in Tieu San's usual seat during meals, or dropping sarcastic, cutting remarks whenever Tieu San's husband was around. But within just a few days, her tactics escalated quickly. She shifted to a more direct offensive, targeting Tieu San's mother-in-law, who was already bewitched by the idea of having a grandson to carry on the family line. The mistress sweetly flattered the older woman, calling her mother affectionately, rubbing her belly, and making suggestive comments like, "Mother, I just know my son will grow up healthy and smart, he'll be just like his father and bring honor to this family." These words were like honey poured into the ears of Tieu San's mother-in-law. A woman who had always favored sons, she melted at the mere mention of grandson, her eyes glowing with pride and delight. Not long after, something truly shocking happened. The mother-in-law, who had never set foot in the kitchen her entire life, personally cooked chicken soup and tonic for her son's mistress. Smiling brightly as she seasoned the pot, she said, "A woman carrying the family's heir needs proper nourishment. This is the first grandson of our lineage, we can't take it lightly." Watching that scene from the corner of the kitchen, Tieu San stood frozen, her heart tightening painfully. She never imagined that because of someone else's unborn child, just because it was a boy, all her years of devotion, love, and effort could suddenly mean so little. Meanwhile, the mistress became increasingly bold. She acted fragile in front of the mother-in-law, constantly complaining about nausea, back pain, and fatigue to gain sympathy and pampering as if she were a beloved daughter. But when she and Tieu San were alone, she dropped the mask, spitting venomous words. "See? Now you know who's really loved in this house. If you leave early, it'll be easier for both of us." Day by day, the mistress tightened her grip, winning over the mother-in-law, securing the husband's support, and wielding the air in her belly like a shield, systematically cornering Tieu San. At night, holding her little daughter in their small room, Tieu San felt the crushing weight of isolation. She knew that if this continued, one day she and her daughter would be forced out with nothing left. The only real obstacle in the mistress's plan was the younger sister-in-law, the sole person in the household who dared to speak up for Tieu San. Although the younger sister didn't have much power, her presence was like a thorn in the mistress's side. As long as there was one voice of opposition in the house, her plan to drive Tieu San out empty-handed would face complications. She knew that to become the new lady of the house, she first had to remove Tieu San's only ally. So, the mistress began plotting in secret, searching for the younger sister's weaknesses to blackmail, divide, and isolate Tieu San completely. At first, she pretended to be friendly, buying gifts, speaking sweetly, and acting like a good sister. But the younger sister already knew her true nature and kept her distance, refusing to be swayed. This only made the mistress more determined to find something she could use. After days of covert observation, she uncovered a dangerous secret. In the past, the younger sister had secretly borrowed money to pay off personal debts. Although Tieu San had helped cover most of it, part of the debt paper remained unsettled. The creditor was a notoriously tough man. If the matter was brought back up, the younger sister could face serious trouble. The mistress contacted the creditor in secret, paid to buy back the original debt document, and kept it as her weapon. One evening, while the younger sister was outside, the mistress approached her with a syrupy smile and a voice as cold as ice. "I know all about your little past, that debt of yours. It's not fully settled, is it? What a pity. I've just helped by getting the original debt paper. Imagine what your mother and brother would think if this came out." The younger sister froze, her face paling. What do you want?" The mistress leaned in close, whispering like a venomous snake. "Simple. Stay out of my business with Tieu San. If not, that debt paper will be on the breakfast table tomorrow. And I bet your mother will be thrilled to learn her daughter once dragged the family's name through the mud." The younger sister clenched her fists, panic and dread swirling inside. She knew her mother's temper, one word about debts, and she'd be thrown out of the house without mercy. But the mistress didn't stop there. She cleverly planted poisonous seeds in the minds of Tieu San's husband and mother-in-law. "If you keep that woman, Tieu San, here, dividing the family assets later will be messy. Our son will end up losing out, mother. And that younger sister of yours, she's too close to Tieu San. I'm worried she'll side with her later, against our family." These words were like oil poured on fire, giving the husband and mother-in-law even more reason to pressure Tieu San into leaving. Meanwhile, the younger sister, bound by the mistress's blackmail, could no longer openly support Tieu San as before. Isolation began to set in. The mistress, sly as a fox, systematically stripped away every ally Tieu San had, pushing her closer and closer to the edge. That night, Tieu San sat clutching her daughter, feeling the storm closing in. The house was no longer a refuge, it had become a chessboard, and she was being cornered with no escape in sight. What will Tieu San do to confront her husband's mistress? Will she fight back, or be forced to leave with nothing because of the mistress's schemes? Stay tuned to find out in the next video.
Hello, xin chào mọi người. Rất vui được gặp lại mọi người trong video của mình. Hiện tại thì những video của mình đang kể về câu chuyện của người con gái mang tên Lý Tiểu San và cuộc sống bất hạnh của Cô bắt đầu từ khi Tiểu San gả cho người chồng của mình tên là Sơn. Anh ta không hề yêu thương Tiểu San, thậm chí còn có người phụ nữ khác ở bên ngoài chỉ vì muốn có một cậu con trai. Liệu rằng Tiểu San sẽ phải làm gì để đối mặt với những khó khăn phía trước? Cô sẽ phải chấp nhận ra đi tay trắng hay là cố gắng sống chịu khổ cùng để phục vụ nhân tình của người chồng của mình? Thì mọi người nhớ đón xem ở những video sau nha. Những video sau thì sẽ tiết lộ những tình tiết mới về cuộc sống của Lý Tiểu San và cô con gái. Rất mong được một sự ủng hộ của mọi người. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại mọi người ở những video sau nha.